Hey everybody, it's Doug Shelf with Remax Oceanside and Make Maine Your Home.com. In this week's episode of the Make Maine Your Home podcast, I'm going over to see Kevin Moquin with Kevin Moquin Architects. If you've ever done any projects around your house, or if you've thought like, geez, can I remove that wall, or I'd love to put an addition on the house, or anything like that, just open up some space or change the space in a property, Kevin is the guy to talk to regarding those types of projects. He's not just a guy that'll, do I want a new home and design that, although he will do that, but he's really great at doing just everything to do with residential architecture. I mean, he's an interesting guy, and I'm really excited to go see him, so let's do this. Hey everybody, now I made it over to see Kevin over here, Kevin Moquin with Kevin Moquin Architects, and I'm really excited to talk to you, actually. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you. Yeah,
and Kevin's, you're going to see this as we talk to him. One of the reasons that I like Kevin so much is his passion for, what he does. It's just amazing. And you'll see that as we start talking about your company and everything. But first off, let's start off about you.
Sure.
Where are you from?
I grew up in Western Mass, in a suburb of Springfield.
Yeah. Was that where the Simpsons are?
Yeah, that is one of the potential locations of the Simpsons.
Yeah.
Funny thing, I read they chose Springfield because every state has a Springfield in it, but I would say, judging by the characters, they meant Springfield, Mass.
Nice. Yeah. So
yeah.
Springfield, a suburb of Springfield. What was it like growing up there?
It was a typical suburban town.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a lot going on there for an architect, a young architect. I went to school in Boston and spent a few years working out there, but just fell in love with Maine, and that brought me to Portland. But growing up in Ludlow was a lot of playing outside, typical suburban things.
Typical suburban stuff. That's awesome. Yeah. So you say young architect. Did you know from a kid that you wanted to be an architect, or were you always did you have an art background, or how did you get into that?
I didn't have an art background, and this will shock everybody, but I mostly hated math.
Okay.
Don't ask me to add or subtract.
Right.
Or multiply, but I did start to like math when geometry came along, and letters were introduced.
Right.
But everybody thinks, oh, you're an architect, you must be great at math.
Right. That's not necessarily the case.
But I loved Legos as a kid and Lincoln Logs, and
sure.
I liked drawing, but I wasn't mad about drawing.
Right. That wasn't a huge passion.
But building things was always a lot of fun, and
right.
But I started out in school for engineering.
Is it? So, well, that's interesting, because don't you need a good math background for engineering?
You do, and I maybe was being led astray by my guidance counselor, who suggested that I go to school to be an actuary, which is even more math.
Right.
And I thought, not at all. Well, it's probably creative in a way that I would appreciate if I was an actuary. But,
right.
But I started out in engineering.
Partially
because my brother was an engineer, I think. I thought,
oh, was he?
Well, it's working for him, that maybe I'll try that.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So is he an engineer now? Was that the field that he went into?
Yeah, he is an engineer now, so he does bridges.
Okay. Wow. Oh, nice.
So,
okay.
Yeah, big infrastructure kind of projects.
Perfect. So it's kind of following that a little bit. So when did you? Well, actually, hold on. Let's back up a little bit. So you have just one brother, or do you have more?
I have two brothers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where was the other one?
The other one's in Western Mass as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So he works for a company called Eastman now, and they manufacture the plastic safety glass for your front windshield, like for car windshials.
Okay. All right. Good.
They make a component for that.
Yeah. Nice. Awesome. So two brothers. Growing up in Springfield, are you guys close? Were you guys close growing up?
Yeah, we were pretty close growing up, and we still, keep in touch now. So I'm the youngest of the three, and my middle brother was 4 years older than me, so that's kids, there was a pretty good age gap.
That's a big age group.
Yeah, so if you imagine...
that was the oldest was 4 years old?
No, the oldest
wow.
is older than him. So, when my middle brother was going away to college, I was just starting high school.
High school, right.
So there was kind of a gap in age in those teenage years where we didn't spend much time together.
Right. Yeah, that's probably pretty common. I have an older brother. He used to beat me up every day. He's editing this, so he'll probably throw something silly in there.
Yeah. Devil horns are right out.
Right, exactly. Yeah, there'll be something funny coming in there. Okay, so great. So you you decide that you want to, or you become an engineer. You're going to go to school for that. Where'd you go to school?
So I started out at Holyoke Community College. So that's a state school, community college in Western Mass, and so we're in the second semester of freshman year, and we have this course about who you work with as an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of an office practice course, and we talk about the architect. And I think, wait a minute, that's the person having all the fun here. I'm going to switch majors and go do that. So,
that's neat.
So that involves switching schools, and so I took a year off to put all that in order, and then went to school in Boston.
Oh, interesting.
Switched to an architecture program.
Well, geez, as a young kid, so you had to be, 18, 19 years old?
Yeah,
right?
I must have been 19 when I...
That must have been an interesting decision at that time.
Yeah. Well, it felt good to stumble on something that really seemed like something I wanted to do. Like the engineering part was like, this is something I can do, and I definitely have some interest in it. But when I discovered architecture, it was sort of more exciting. I was excited about learning it more. It felt more like something I could do.
Right, exactly. Yeah, okay. Yeah, something that you wake up in the morning, got a little jazzed about it. Good.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was it about architecture that got you a little excited about it? Was it the drawing aspect, or just buildings?
Well, it was the creation aspect of it. You're creating space from nothing, or I've sort of learned to describe it now as I'm creating a 3D puzzle, only I'm the one who determines the size and shape of all the pieces.
Right.
So, I didn't quite have a handle on that attraction to it then, but again, it was sort of came out of the making things out of Legos, creating objects and spaces. That's what draws me into architecture.
Right, piecing everything together. So you decided to go to school in Boston. What school did you land on now?
So I went to Wentworth Institute of Technology.
Okay.
And studied architecture there. So architecture is a 5-year bachelor's degree.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
The professional degree in architecture that allows you to get a license is a 5-year degree. So I spent 5 years at Wentworth studying that degree.
So you get right out of school, you have your license. That's part of the program.
Well,
is that what you mean? Or,
right out of school, you have a degree that allows you to take a license. So there are architecture
That's
programs.
part of it. You go in there and say, "Hey, I want a license. Here's my degree."
After you do some internship and fulfill some training requirements in different categories, then you can take an exam.
Oh, okay.
And once you pass that exam, then you can have a license and call yourself an architect.
Oh, well, that's interesting. So the training and stuff like that, how does that happen? Like, do you have to go find an architect and be like an apprentice or something?
So the training happens, it has to be as an employee of an architect who's licensed.
Yeah.
And there are categories of experience that you have to accrue. So it's about 3 years of experience, although it takes most people longer than 3 years to do it, because some of the things you aren't necessarily doing in your first 3 years.
Right.
Sometimes you can get it done in 3 years.
Right. Depending on what type of work it is. Now, are you getting paid for this? Or?
Oh yeah, you're an employee.
So you've landed a job. So
you're
probably not paid very well, I imagine. Not bad.
We're not doctors.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, you're a paid employee, and you're producing real work.
Okay, so you're not like in an internship or something.
That's right.
Okay.
It has been labeled internship. I think they've changed the name of it recently, but you're compensated.
You're compensated for it. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, and then, so do you remember what company that you worked for at that point?
Well, I worked for a handful of companies. I had a pattern of finding something new to do every 3 years or so.
Okay. I get it.
You know, and part of that was I started out in Western Mass for the firm in Amherst doing only houses. You know, it was a great position, and after a couple of years there, the principal of that firm, this was a one-person firm and I was the one employee,
Gotcha.
came to me and said, Kevin, you know, I only do houses. I'm only ever going to do houses. You're just out of school. You might want to see what it's like to do other kind of buildings. So if you want to stay, I'd love to have you stay. But if you want to try something else, maybe you should. And so I thought, yeah, you know, that's some really good advice.
Well, that's nice of him.
Yeah, no, it was really, it was nice to sort of have that offered up, or make the transition from the first job to the second job a little easier, because my boss, the person I have to tell, is sort of opening the door. I don't have to stress out about saying, hey, you know, I think I'm going to go do something else. So I ended up doing that, working for a firm there that did schools, but I always enjoyed doing houses. You know, and then when we moved to Portland, I worked for a firm, Stephen Blatt Architects. They do houses and schools, so that was kind of a nice mix of the experience that I had at the time. Right.
So before we jump into that, coming to Maine, what made that decision? Was were you just like, hey, I like Maine, I'm coming, or did you vacation?
You know,
there or
so
something?
before then, I had a friend in high school, and we would come up with his family to Old Orchard and camp there for a week in the summer, and that was my only experience of Maine for the most
Old
part.
Orchard?
Yeah, so that's not really an experience of Maine. You know, we were going to the beach. And
I mean, that's how a lot of people get. They get sucked into Maine because you come up for a vacation or something. Yeah.
And so my then girlfriend, now wife's brother, moved to Portland, and I thought, well, why does he want to do that? You know, and then we came up to visit, and I was like, well, I want to live here too.
Oh, nice.
You know, this is it's a great city.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. I love food, so even
we're a good town for that.
20 years ago, when I moved here, it was that way then too.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a new phenomenon. It's newly discovered maybe, but it was still happening then.
Always good food. Yeah.
So that was half of the reason, but you know, it was a good urban place. You know, it had a good mix of things I liked about Boston and things I liked about living in a smaller town. So it was a good fit.
Cool.
And it was actually, you know, 6 weeks from having dinner, there was a little Irish pub called Empty Pockets. I think it was on Forest Ave in town. And Shannon and I were there eating. And I said, well, what do you think about moving to Portland? And so 6 weeks later, we were moving in. So it was a pretty quick decision and turnaround to move to Maine and then arrive here.
Yeah.
And we landed here in, you know, the beginning of March, I think it was, or something. So, you know, like not a great time to be here, you know, but I mean, it is now, but that was our introduction.
Right. Oh, awesome. So that's cool. That's a cool way to come up to Maine.
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of, you know, it's kind of fun at that age to be able to just, I'm going to move. Let's go.
Right. So then, so you guys get here, and you go to work for, what was the name of the company again?
Stephen Blatt.
Stephen Blatt, okay. And houses and schools, like what was that experience like working for them? Was it drastically different from the Massachusetts scene, or was it, you know, kind of similar?
It was somewhat different. You know, that was sort of the first office that I worked in where design and quality of the design was really pushed to the forefront.
Oh, really? Okay.
You know, it was a real part of the business plan of that office. So that was, you know, it was a good exposure to
the quality of it. Okay.
Yeah. You know, so sometimes, you know, you can solve the problem in a lot of different ways, and part of it is just solving the problem, and then you bring more creativity to it. The quality of the design gets better, or you sort of push more to make that solution more creative. You know, so that office was sort of my first exposure to working that way.
Okay.
You know, I mean, in school, when you're in architecture school, it's, you know, it's a real creative endeavor, and you try to push those boundaries. The real world, you don't always have the opportunity to push those boundaries because there's, you know, budgets and clients' tastes and different things that influence that direction. Right. In school, it's about
in school it's like, hey, make this and have some
and it's
fun.
about pushing the creativity of it. So, you know, this office was, you know, an exposure of bringing that creativity
Oh, kind of back.
Maybe not at the same level, but it was more a part of the goals of the office than it might have been at other places I've worked.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, how long were you there?
So I was there 5 years.
5 years?
Yeah.
Okay. So you made it longer than your 3 years.
That's right. No, that's the record holder for my time as an employee.
Good. Now from there, is that where you decided to go out on your own, or did you go to somewhere else?
No, from there I went to another office in town that did solely residential projects, and those were, mostly waterfront houses, oceanfront or lakefront, or sort of, sort of substantial coastal houses.
Right.
And I spent about 3 years there.
3 years? All right,
Yeah.
boom.
Yeah.
So although waterfront, I mean, that must have given you some really good experience, though, I imagine, here in Maine. I mean, waterfront's kind of a tricky place to do things.
Yeah, right. So those projects are, how do we deal with this 100-mile-an-hour wind or the rain that's going to come sideways at this building?
Right. Yeah,
So there's a weather aspect. There's, oftentimes those houses had pretty substantial budgets, so we got to work with nice materials.
Yeah, right.
It tended to be a clientele that was asking for something more from the design. They wanted something creative, so it was, it was fun in those ways.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So is that also where, like, I hear a lot of people that especially move here from, like, Florida or whatever, they're all worried about the hurricanes coming up. I mean, did you have to deal a lot with that stuff as far as building?
Well, it impacted what kind of windows we specified and things like that, and it impacted the structural engineers' work.
Right.
They had to resist different category of wind than you might have in a site that's inland.
Right.
So yeah, definitely impacted.
Okay, cool.
Impacted how those unfolded.
So it sounds like, so far in your career, you've had, some commercial experience, some residential experience. You stayed at this place for 3 years. Where'd you go after that?
So after that, it was up to a builder in Freeport, and I tried out the design-build world for a while, and so worked for a builder in Freeport doing high-performance, energy-efficient houses.
Okay. So you actually worked for the builder.
I worked for the builder.
It wasn't necessarily an architectural firm or anything.
That's right. So at that point, I'm licensed.
You did your thing.
You're
the
So I went and worked there and ran the design office. And for most of that tenure, I was the architect there. There was some support staff that I managed on occasion, but it was sort of getting some good experience in what does it mean to build a high-performance building and how do we accomplish that, and then also, how buildings go together. We got to talk really about constructability,
right?
And what does it really mean to translate this design on paper to something in the built world. There was that part of the process was less on my desk when I was the architect in a separate office, and the builder was somebody who came.
I was going to say, the experience in that must have been great.
It was great,
having the builder like right next to you or whatever. Right?
And
hey, Bob, what do you think of this?
And the carpenters on the crew in and out through the day, you could ask somebody to look at something. Hey, am I making your life hard with the way I'm detailing this? And, you could kind of get that feedback. It was definitely fun.
I bet. Yeah, that's interesting. So 3 years there?
Yep, about 3 years there. But although that one was crushed by the recession for the most part.
Oh, right.
Now we're at around 2008. Everything's slowing down.
Yeah.
So.
No, well that's interesting because that 10 years ago when the economy tanked, that hurt a whole lot of people. And what happened to there? Did you have to get laid off?
Well, so things got slow there. I took a position to work on some houses for a subdivision that ultimately stalled. So I ended up working for a commercial construction firm doing some project management for a few years.
Okay. Yeah. So project management, not necessarily.
So instead, so
just kind of doing what you need to do.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So we all did it. Yeah. I felt like I job
it was good experience, and it sort of, so I was the person in the general contractor's office that called the architect with the question. So the question would come in from the field to me. I would read it and say, I can answer that. And then I'd send it off to the architect whose job it was to answer that. So I was sort of the middleman.
Yeah.
It wasn't my role to answer it, but it was.
Right. But you're like, okay, I can't answer it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So it was a good experience. It wasn't an experience that made me want to change careers, but it was an exposure to another way, another side of the.
In hindsight, it probably helped you a little bit.
Yeah, there was, there were great people there. This is with Ledgewood Construction.
Oh yeah,
I know Ledgewood. Well-known firm, and they really care about doing a good building, and it was a good place to gain that experience.
Okay.
And I made friends there that I still keep in touch with. So.
Oh, perfect.
So
good.
It was a good experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from there. Now a few years later, of course, the economy's starting to get a little better at that point, probably 2010, 11, starting.
Yep. And so then it was actually 2014 when I launched my own firm.
It was, okay, great.
So it's been 5 years.
So tell me, what was that like, launching your own firm? Was this, did it take you a long time to figure out that that's what you wanted to do, or were you thrusted into it?
Yeah, no, I sort of knew, almost right from the start that someday I wanted to have my own firm.
Okay. So that was somewhat of a plan, right?
Yeah, that was somewhat of a plan.
Kind of like, someday I'm going to do that.
And I think that's the goal of every architecture student when they graduate, is to work for 3 years, finish your internship requirements, and then go out
and do it.
And so somewhere over that 3 years, a lot of us learned, there's a lot more to learn than you can pack in your head in those 3 years.
3 years, yeah, sure.
And so...
Well, the economy kind of didn't help us either, so...
and you realize, it's not just so easy as hanging up a sign with your name on it. You've got have to have a way to bring those clients in.
Yeah.
So you've got to have a way to generate the work to keep yourself busy. And so for a good chunk of those 3 years, I'm thinking, there's not a line of people waiting to hire me. How do I make this thing work for myself and get the ball rolling, to bring in my own clients?
Yeah, makes sense. So how did all that come together then? When you started your own thing, did you have a couple of clients lined up? Did you have some people that?
So I mentioned when I took the job at the construction company, it was partially because this subdivision stalled. So that came back to life, and so the developer for that sort of posed the question, Kevin, I know you want to go out on your own. Why don't you use this project as the safety net? You work on this while you get the ball rolling to build your own firm. So it was it sort of arrived on a platter, which made it much easier. Because at that point, we've got a young son, so keeping the income and keep paying the mortgage and buying the groceries was really important. So we had to definitely have a way to keep that happening.
Oh yeah, that's got to be terrifying.
Yeah.
So how old was your son at that point?
So he was probably two at that point.
All right, gotcha. And that was right around 2014 or so. Okay. Yeah. Cool. So that must have been terrifying. So that was terrifying. Got to provide.
Yeah. And so that was a good. There was that safety net there. I knew. Especially getting the ball rolling for that, there was a lot of work to do. So there was a good amount of time where I knew I'd have something to work on. Yeah. And I could.
I'm just curious now. How long did that subdivision last? Like how long were you able to?
No, I'm still doing bits of it now.
Still now. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah. All right, good. Yeah, it's amazing how long those things can drag.
Yeah. So we nibbled away at phase 2 of it this year, and it'll probably wrap up this year.
Right.
But it. It's a very small demand on my time. We've put a lot of pieces in place, and that can kind of come together on its own almost.
Perfect. Okay. All right, so now you're on your own. Your subdivision, you're able to work on. Let's talk a little bit about your services that you do, now, or you have done over the last few years. One of the things I like about what you do is you're good with I don't want to say smaller projects, but the more intimate projects, and being able to help out the normal person versus
Yeah, I wanted to model my practice on architecture that wasn't exclusive in a way.
Right.
I think a lot of people think architects are in their offices waiting for the millionaires or the corporations to call.
Right.
and that's not how I run my practice. I do some projects for those clients, but I also do projects for someone who wants to add a mudroom or remodel a kitchen.
Right.
So the waterfront projects that I did as an employee once are a smaller part of what I do. Occasionally I'm doing one of those. But I find the smaller projects are very satisfying as well, because I'm creating a space or fixing a space that doesn't work for someone, and that's having an impact on their life every day.
Right.
So I'm making a difference in somebody's lifestyle, on a daily basis, and that's pretty satisfying. And kind of
right.
Trying to find a way that to create architecture and have an impact on people's lives, and not have it be about how opulent that solution is.
Gotcha.
And sometimes we have really beautiful and finely crafted solutions, and and that's great.
Right.
But it's not,
It's not
sort of the
always
bar
about
of
that.
entry for the work that I do.
Sure. So what's the the type of work that you do? Like, what's the smallest thing you would take on? Like, I mean, if somebody came in and they just want to remodel a kitchen, do you help with kitchen design? Or
Yeah, I help with kitchen design.
Okay.
Small additions.
Okay.
A lot of times if we're renovating a house, the way I approach it is, let's take a look at the space you have and make sure that you're using that in an efficient way.
Interesting.
Sometimes we can move around some partitions inside a house or change things inside the space you already own.
Right.
And then find we need to build a smaller addition to solve the problem that you came to me with originally.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Sometimes it's not always adding on another space to accommodate
Right.
this need that the client has identified. Sometimes it's a little bit of that and a little bit of reorganizing what they have so that it all works well together in the end.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, me being a broker showing houses and stuff, it's so common. Like, the house is built for somebody, but then the next owner's like, well, can I remove this wall? Can I move that around? Yeah. So you'll help with all that, even just kind of, hey, I want to shift this wall, rework the living space. Okay. And then do you do new builds, I'm assuming? Additions?
Yeah, additions, renovations, new houses.
Mm-hmm.
It's all.
Now, when it comes to budget, somebody might be out there and say, well, I want to do this stuff, and I don't necessarily have $1 million for all this. And I think how does that work? I mean, I'm sure your fees are you would sit down. Each individual project is probably different, but how are you able to kind of work with everybody's budget?
Yeah, so the fee for each project is a little bit different, and it's sort of tailored to what I think I have to do and how involved my services are. So if I'm making the big decisions and shoving this client off in the right direction with a good builder, that's one level of fee. And if I'm making all the decisions and thoroughly documenting all of those, that's sort of another end of the fee.
Right.
But I try to work with what people have available to spend on my services to find a good fit there. Because if you can get those big decisions right, it's a small investment in my services, but those are the parts of the project that really have to work for that client to not waste the big chunk of money they're going to spend building it.
Right.
You've got to get those big decisions right to even make doing it worthwhile.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I see what you're saying. So if you make the big decisions the right way, it makes everything else go smoother.
Yeah. So to
makes
make
perfect sense.
quality design available to a broader audience, I will take on projects where I make the big decisions and send them off headed in the right direction, and not be the guy that controls the reins or has to control the reins on how that all unfolds.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Great.
There are other projects where I'm designing custom molding profiles and built-ins and kitchens and casework, to a high level of detail. And,
right.
Those projects I'm making more of the decisions.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. Now, just for in case if somebody's watching, they're like, geez, I've been thinking about moving this wall and all that kind of stuff. will you go out and chat with somebody like? For like a free estimate type thing. I mean, that's kind of like what builders would say, but
yeah, I mean, I'll definitely go out and chat with people. Usually it will start with a conversation on the phone to get a feel that, that the project is a good fit. And if it seems like it's a good fit, then they'll go out and meet with the client at their house to learn more about it. And I do take on some small consulting projects, so those visits to a potential client's house kind of come in two ways. If I'm going out there on a fact-finding mission to put together a proposal for a project that will happen later, that is not something I would send a bill for. If I'm going out there with the goal to actually accomplish something of value to that client on the site, then we might agree on a fee for a one-time
before you actually go out there.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, I see what you're saying.
It's sort of, if I'm going to go there to actually produce a result for them, then that's the expertise I get compensated for.
Right.
If I'm going out there to put together a proposal to then bring that expertise in, then that's usually not something that I charge for the visit to kind of fact-finding mission, as I call it.
Right, makes sense.
Yeah.
But I guess the point of that too is, if anybody's even thinking about doing a project, they really just pick up the phone, give you a call, or send you an email.
Pick up the phone, call. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we say, how do they get in touch with you? What's the best phone number to reach you at?
Yeah, so I can be reached at area code 207-615-6421.
Yeah.
That's the office number.
That's the best way to get you.
Yeah.
And do you have a website?
Website is km-a.me. So
km-a.me.
Yeah.
That's great. That's easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
try to keep it
And
easy.
they could email you through there.
Yeah, through there.
stuff.
There's a contact form on the
Yeah.
website. There's some of my work. There's a little frequently asked questions page.
Perfect.
But I would encourage anybody who's thinking about changes or struggling with, I don't know how this change that I want to make can possibly happen in this house that I have.
Like, I want this, just don't know how to make it
I
happen.
can't see how it will happen.
Right.
Sort of call an architect. Call me. That's
Right.
That's my whole career is to bring the vision to those things.
That's great that you say that, because I got to tell you, it's amazing to me how many people can't see stuff, how to move things around.
Yeah.
Because I come from a construction background, so I can see like, oh, if we move this wall, but you know what I mean? But I'm amazed at how many people that I'm talking with and they just can't see it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's really common. I think that not a lot of people have that see it in 3D in your mind skill, which is why there are sort of separate professions.
Right.
For that,
right.
And even, a good number of my clients are kind of learning how to read architectural drawings throughout the process. Reading a floor plan, what do these lines on paper mean, and
that's fun too.
Yeah, it is fun. It's fun to draw them. It's fun to read them when you know how to read them. But I think it's intimidating for some who don't know how to read them. But and I sort of test the waters early on in that client-architect relationship to see, how much training I might have to do to help people figure out how to read them.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because I suppose somebody who hasn't seen a lot of them, you look at it, it's like it's a weird looking map.
Right. So as a realtor, I can throw a floor plan on the desk in front of you, and you'll know what you're looking at.
Right. But a lot of people
to some folks that could be a foreign language. It could be like if I asked you to read Greek, which maybe you know how to read Greek, but
no.
So software's come a long way to help tell that story. So we can look at a floor plan and I can say, okay, here's what it looks like.
Right.
We're standing in this kitchen looking out over that living room.
That's a good point. I mean, software, geez, even since you got in there, I'm sure that's been a huge change. I mean, what I saw before, we jumped on camera here, some of the stuff that you have is amazing, nowadays. Yeah. How has that changed over the years?
Yeah, I was the last graduating class from Wentworth that did construction drawings courses by hand.
Oh,
So
really?
for me, the CAD stuff was an elective.
Oh, interesting.
But the class that graduated the year after me did all of those construction drawing courses on hand, and they still had it on the computer. But they still had a basis in hand drawing. They were still sketching courses and things.
Right.
But I never drew by hand in the professional environment. From my first position onward has always been
Wasn't that
working
something?
at the computer.
So you were taught that way, and then and it was all computerized. Yeah.
And learning that way is really valuable because you get an intimate appreciation of which lines to make heavier and which lines to make lighter when you're drawing, because you have total control over all of that in the computer, and that you need to control those things to make those drawings legible and beautiful.
Right. It makes sense.
And drawing by hand is still a part of the process. I still sketch through ideas on trace paper when I'm trying to solve things.
Interesting. Yeah.
But generally, what a client sees as a presentation is generated by the computer.
Great.
I've modeled the thing in the computer to show them, so it's there are no fewer human ideas in there. Just
right. These people gotta love that though, seeing like the renderings.
Well, you
and all
can
that.
just see the light bulb go off. They understand what they're looking at. So I like to tell my clients that you are going to know what this looks like before the builder shows up to tear down that wall, or before they dig the hole to pour that foundation. So you'll walk onto site and it'll be like you've seen it before, and it won't be, oh, it looks like that. We won't have that.
Oops, that's not what I wanted.
Yeah. So you get to see it, and you get to see it, but you also, in the process of design, you get to test out all the what if scenarios that might be rattling around in your head. What if we did this? What if we did that?
Right.
What if we did?
And you can test it out on the computer before you're.
We can explore those on paper and run with the ones that are good ideas, but put the other ones to rest if they're not going to work out, and then the client doesn't end up in the finished product thinking, I always wondered what it would have been like if X, Y, or Z, because we've looked at X, Y, and Z in the design process and decided, Q that we went with was the best solution.
That was the best idea. Yeah.
So there isn't that sort of lingering question. We can look at all of those things.
Right. Before you break ground or do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess one last thing is like, where's your sweet spot as far as doing, but like geographically, like do you stay just in the greater Portland area? Like how far will you go?
Yeah, most of my work is in the greater Portland area. Maybe within an hour or less is the majority of my projects, and I do.
Hour or less is though pretty big though. I mean, you think probably Brunswick down to Biddeford.
Yeah,
Biddeford,
in
that circle.
Kittery, Brunswick.
Yeah.
And I'll travel further for either bigger projects or interesting projects.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if it looks cool, you're going.
If it's a really dramatic site and it seems like it will be a fun project, then that will definitely change the distance I will travel. But the smaller renovation projects tend to be more local.
Here, yeah, it makes sense. Okay. Any last words? Anything else you want to say?
Thanks for the opportunity to talk with you and kind of get the story out about what I do. I want people to, if you're intimidated by an architect, if you think it's an exclusive thing, give it a try, talk to one, and see. I think it's definitely the route to go to create a quality living space for yourself if you're looking to make changes. Yeah,
the space that you're going to love. If you have any questions, comment below or reach out to Kevin. Check out his website. Give him a call anytime. I tell you, he's got a ton of passion for what he does, and it really comes through. You really enjoy working with him. So, let him know if you have questions. So thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. And remember, if you want to make Maine your home, you don't have to do it alone.